Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. These past 2 weeks I've made huge strides in both my YouTube channel and my painting. I started talking to Para-Bellum Wargames. They make a really awesome tabletop miniature wargame. The game's called Conquest, and they actually have 2 different ways you can play in Conquest. You can play First Blood, which is more of a skirmish type game, so you have a smaller amount of units, and it's generally a little quicker paced. The second is The Last Argument of Kings, and it's more of a mass battle, rank and file game. After talking to them a little bit, they decided to send me 3 models that I could paint for my channel, and these 3 models got me hooked. They sent me a pack of the City-States Minotaurs. Their models are 38mm scale, which is a little bit bigger than a Warhammer miniature or any of the other miniatures. I found this a lot easier to paint, and it wasn't as difficult as painting the 75mm scale that I painted before. I had a lot more room to work with, and I felt like I could get a lot more detail in those areas without it being way too compact or way too open. Para-Bellum is also a sponsor for Resin Beast. It's a miniature painting competition run at Adepticon. I've been following a lot of the Adepticon news that's coming out, and I actually got to talk to a couple people in regards to painting for a competition like Resin Beast or Golden Demon. Previously, I thought I wasn't at that level yet, but after looking at all the different miniatures, I realized that it doesn't really matter if I'm to the max level. It doesn't matter if I win. What actually matters is that I'm challenging myself and giving myself a set goal. I want to do the Resin Beast competition, and to do that, I have to take a look at the judging and see how they judge their miniature painting competition. Whenever I started looking into the competitions and talking to Para-Bellum, they told me there was a new champion entry in every one of their categories. I really like this idea because it brings newer painters into this competition sphere, and it really allows everybody to push to become better at what they're doing. You can see other people around you and see how they're doing all of their techniques up close and personal. And although you might be seeing the finished product of all their work, you can generally key in on certain techniques that they might have used and where they decided to place light on their miniature. Whenever they judge these competitions, they focus on 4 criteria: originality, theme, workmanship, and application. In this video, I want to show me painting these city-state minotaurs and painting them like I would a Resin Beast competition. So here's the box that I received. This will be the first time that I show the process of cleaning up a model and getting it ready to paint. Before I started this process, I really wanted to get some green stuff. I just didn't have a chance to go out and get it. But green stuff really helps you fill all the different gaps in the model. Para-Bellum gives you a really good instruction booklet so you can follow along and keep building these miniatures. One thing I did notice with building this miniature is you really want to put the arms on first and then put the shoulder pads on. It doesn't give you an exact order in which to put some of these items on, and I found that sometimes whenever I would put something on there, I'd have to push a little harder or snap it in place to get it past something. Whether it be the shoulder pad or the heads on one of the models. I started by taking an X-Acto knife to all the different mold lines and trying to work them down a little bit. I noticed that if I held it perpendicular to the model, it would actually jump and skitter a little bit. But if I held it at a 45-degree angle, it actually made the cleanup process a little easier and it let it skid past. I'm not sure if this is due to the X-Acto knife that I was using. Maybe it wasn't sharp enough. There were some areas that were harder to get with an X-Acto knife. Previously, I was working with a lot of resin, so I had super glue on hand. I needed plastic glue. Plastic glue is one of the best things for models because it actually binds the plastic together. Once I got done cleaning up the models, I went ahead and primed the models with a nice dark black. and then I went over it with a zenithal highlighting. I don't really understand zenithal highlighting with the type of painting that I do, so it might not be something that I continue doing for right now. I feel like it would work really well with a contrast paint or one of the Army Painter speed paints. But for what I'm doing, I'm generally covering up every spot, so you don't see the lighter or darker transition. I started base coating this model with a natural gray from Vallejo. I wasn't sure where I wanted to put the brown on the Minotaur, so I went ahead and just did the whole entire skin tone gray, and I figured I could go in and decide where exactly I wanted this brown to be a little bit later. Once the base coat dried, I moved on to the brown that I wanted in the Minotaur's spots. To do this, I used the Para-Bellum Warm Brown. I followed a reference photo that I found online. With all the orange and brown on this model, I felt like starting at a blue-gray would give a lot more contrast to the model and show a little bit more depth. When you're doing white, it's really important to stay away from just doing plain white. It kind of makes the model look a little bit campy and you don't get as much detail. After I let that gray dry, I went ahead and added a little bit of white to it. You can't really see it on camera too much here, but that's how you want to start out. You want to start out with a little bit lighter of a color and slowly work yourself up. I previously thought the smaller the brush, the better. But what I've come to realize is I actually enjoy using a number 4 brush on most of my miniatures. With the right brush, it actually provides a very thin tip and a larger brush belly. That way I can soak in more paint and I'm not having to go back and get more paint over and over again. After I got the white to a point that I really liked, I went ahead and took that warm brown and I mixed it with a little bit of flesh tone. The reason why I did flesh tone instead of white is I wanted to keep that warm value in there. So I added something with a little bit of warmth and a little bit of light so that I could start carrying that light value. On the next step, I added a little bit more skin tone to it, but it didn't look like I was changing a whole lot, and I felt like I was still losing a lot of that really warm value. I need to bring a little bit more of a orangish or a gold into the fur, just so I can make it stand out, kind of like the white does. I was worried that the orange transparent paint was going to be a little too much orange. Once it started to dry, I could see the brown underneath, and I realized that it was doing exactly what I wanted it to do. Hopefully seeing this inspires you guys to take a little bit more of a challenge and go and enter into some of these competitions. Although it doesn't have to be Resin Beast, I feel like competitions are a great way to challenge yourself to spend a little bit more time on a model. At the end, I really didn't like the shoulder pads, so I decided to do them a different way. What I settled on is using the Vallejo Silver as a base coat, and then using an acrylic wash that was a dark umber. This brought out a little bit more shine to it, and it turned that silver color almost gold-like. After working in all the different details, I decided to move on to the base. So here's the finished model. It took me significantly longer to paint this model, but I wanted to make sure every detail was put in perfectly. My favorite part of this model is actually the back. You can see the clear definition between its muscles, and I feel like the fur reads really well on the back. I could have done some other things like using green stuff to fill the gaps and really work on the non-metallic metal portion of it. My problem with that is I'm going to be using this miniature on the tabletop, and non-metallic metal, although it's really nice in display pieces, loses some of its effect when viewed from different angles. Using a true metallic on these models allows it to be viewed from all sorts of angles, especially from behind where I'm going to be seeing my army played, and from the front where my opponent will be. I was going to paint more of a solid color Minotaur for this project, but once I got started painting all of the different fur technique, I realized that I wanted all three of these Minotaurs to be like that. I've only painted one of the Minotaurs so far, but my next two are going to be exactly like it. I loved the way that the white turned out. It was really readable as white, starting from that low gray color all the way up to more of a light gray into white color. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and I plan to do a lot more Conquest miniatures in the future. I just pre-ordered the Nord First Blood Warband. Once I get these models in, I want to do a live stream on YouTube. That way you guys can see me in the process, talk to me as I'm doing all these different techniques, and hopefully be able to see in a little bit more detail without me having to cut out different parts of it. If you hit subscribe down below, you'll get a notification whenever I start the live stream. But you can also follow the community, and you can follow Para-Bellum's community events page. I'll post the link there as well. I'm excited to bring you guys more Conquest content, and if you guys are excited about it, let's go paint.